Coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on the 17th of May. It's a Friday. It's 8:51 in the morning. If you guys could hold on a couple of minutes for me to get my posts up in the chat, which isn't happening yet. Takes a couple of minutes. There we go. Up in the chat. Okay, I got sound and picture. Hang on posting in the chat for a minute or two till I get my posts up, please. Just another minute and I'll be done posting. Just give me another minute. Okay, you can post in the chat. I'm all set. Okay, being a Bible-believing site, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. Let me start by telling everybody that I am an Old Testament and a New Testament believer. I'm Jewish. I live in Israel. I'm a descendant of Aaron, which makes me a Cohen or a priest. Okay, I'm full of the Holy Spirit, Old Testament and New Testament. I believe that all believers in Yeshua HaMashiach, which is his real name, not Jesus, there's no J in the Hebrew alphabet. Yeshua is his name. It has to do with salvation. Ha means the, Mashiach means the anointed, the Messiah. The word really means anointed in the Greek and the Hebrew. Okay? I believe that you have to stick to the scriptures. Okay? And I point out with great regularity how the churches at large, all 2 billion of them, do not adhere to the scriptures, quoting the scriptures. And this offends people. And I'm sorry, but I use the scriptures. They don't have the scriptures on their side. All right? So let's start right out with Galatians 5:19 to 21. Okay? I just, people say, oh, you're an idiot. I'm not an idiot. I follow the Bible. The churches don't. Here we go. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance. What is variance? They vary in their doctrines. They're not united. They have different doctrines, like what? Pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, amillennial. All wrong. Baptized in the Holy Spirit, don't. Pray in tongues, don't. House church, building church, blah, 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 blah. Variants, okay? And they go further. They accept each other's variants as possible by teaching the people they don't know the truth. I have the scriptures. They don't. Emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, and heresies. What is a sedition? The word is not commonly used in our English today, but it means a division. What is a denomination but a division? It's not a reasonable match. It's a 99.9% match. This is our denomination. This is what we believe. Now comes the variance with the doctrinal statements. The only doctrinal statement that you could have is the first verse of Genesis and to the last verse of Revelation. You don't have doctrinal statements. Some say they're a Cephas, some say they're from this one, that one. That's a division. Okay, I know 2 billion people do this. Broad and wide is the road to destruction, and many find it. Straight and narrow is the path, and few be that find it. Okay, so seditions, heresies, which is basically a sect, like a division. Okay, envyings, murders. Now note that murder is right up there with variance and seditions. Drunkenness, revelings, and such like of the which I tell you before, as I have told you in time past, that which they do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Okay? That's a strikeout. End time, lake of fire. Now, people come here and they, this idiot, the church, this and that. We're not perfect. Why should the church be perfect? Well, remember, Yeshua says he comes back for a church without spot, wrinkle, or blemish. So I'm just tired of people coming in and leaving, you're an idiot, this and that. All right, I'm telling you right now, this is part of what I teach. Using the scriptures. Using the scriptures. The church doesn't have a scripture for their divisions and varying doctrinal statements. None of them do, because it doesn't exist. Okay? Now I'll give you another big one. Do you believe in the 10 Commandments? Let's see. Did Yeshua do away with the 10 Commandments? Did he? Let's take a look at them. It's Exodus 20, verse 1. And Elohim spake all these words, saying, I am Jehovah Elohim, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Okay. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, Jehovah Elohim, am a jealous God, visiting the lawlessness. That word iniquity means lawlessness, not following the law, of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of Jehovah Elohim in vain, for Jehovah will not hold him guiltless that taketh the name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Jehovah Elohim, and thou shalt not do any work, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is in thy gates. For in 6 days Jehovah made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore Jehovah blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. The days of the week in Israel are numbered, except for one, the Sabbath day. Yom Rishon, which means the first, Yom is day, Rishon is first, is Sunday. Okay? So when you get to Friday, which starts Thursday night in our English time frame speak, and it goes till Friday. It starts Thursday night. Friday is the 6th day. Friday at, let's call it the sunset, the sun going down literally, you go into the 7th day, which is over Saturday at sunset. That's your Shabbat, the Sabbath. Now, there is no scriptural basis in the Bible for disregarding that. That was never done away with. Yeshua never did away with the Sabbath. In his prophecies, he said in Matthew 24, pray that your flight not be on the Sabbath. And he was projecting forward after his death. So if you want to attend churches that are guilty of variance, division, heresies, and ignoring the Sabbath amongst many other things, that's up to you. But don't call me an idiot. You don't have any scriptures. So if you're going to be listening to me, bear in mind I kick against the church hard, as any man should do. And I went there myself for a few years, as most of us did. But we read the Bible, and we fear God, and we follow the Bible. People in the church either don't read the Bible, don't fear God, or don't care. Okay? Oh, why would they be there? You tell me. Why would they be there? All right. So we have some very profound current events. Russia announced they're moving warships off the coast of California near Oakland, which Oakland is by San Francisco. So it's not the top of California near Nevada. It's not the bottom by San Diego. It's kind of north of the middle, let's say, right? And they're going to test fire missiles and rockets. I understand that the thought is it'll be 300 nautical miles off the coast. They are various missiles that would reach inside America from 300 miles, and we do not know if they're going to be 300 miles off or less. They issued a NOTAM, which means civilian aircraft warning not to fly in these areas. These areas is part of the Oakland International Airport air traffic control region. It's probably would also apply to San Francisco Airport, which is a huge airport. So Russia's going to be firing the missiles, I believe, from 4 to 7 I don't remember, or I don't think, it might have been in the morning or it could be in the afternoon. I don't remember that. Probably the morning or something. So it's a big zone around there where the commercial or civilian aircraft are told not to fly during these hours. And this is started yesterday, and it is over the last day of the month, May 31st. Have the Russian ships arrived and started firing the missiles and rockets yet? This we don't know yet, but we'll find out, I'm sure, within the next hours. I don't think so. Now, is this an announced maneuver to allow Russia to get close to America and launch long-range missiles in America? I seriously doubt that. It could be, but here's the problem with this. 2 or 3 days before, most 4 days, probably about 3 days, maybe 4, Putin went to China to see that the head of China, Xi Jinping, whatever his name is, Xi Jinping, whatever they call it. And they had a very cordial meeting. Of course, they're not going to tell you what they discussed. Probably this. Now, at the same time, Russia is doing the same thing in Scandinavia, off of Norway and one of the other countries up there. And they say they're testing some sort of space missile or some, I don't know, some similar thing. Missile testing off their coast. So he's doing it in 2 places at the same time. The first thing we can speculate on with strength here is that Russia is doing this to distract America and NATO for possibly something else going on in Ukraine, maybe, or Taiwan, I don't know. Okay? What we can count on for sure is that Russia's going to have their one of their intelligence ships, or maybe more than one, with the fleet doing the missile testing. That's going to collect all kinds of data on the American defense mechanisms that they mobilize. Because it is. America has to mobilize. In case Russia launches, they got to take them down. So they got to put ships out there between the Russian ships and the American coast to take missiles down. They got to have American warplanes in the air to shoot down drones, missiles, other things. They got to have submarine hunter drones, planes, ships, whatever, to make sure Russia doesn't have submarines there with them, which they're more than likely going to have. They'd be stupid not to have 1 or 2 submarines with them. So Russia's going to get a chance to observe American submarines protecting America, American radar protecting America, American drones protecting America, looking for submarine ships, how American jets are going to scramble, and it's going to be an information gathering field day for Russia. Now, that doesn't mean they won't attack, but I don't think they will. What more than likely is prompting this is the delivery of F-16s to Ukraine, which is going to turn the war against Russia. And these F-16s are more than capable and competent to fly into Russian territory and bomb and missile attack things there. Putin's S-300s, S-400s, anti-aircraft, anti-missile systems are probably not going to stop the F-16s. Additionally, the UK very recently, I'd say in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is sending, or already has sent, or they're getting ready to send, missiles to Ukraine. I think they call them HIMARS, but long-range ones that will easily reach well into Russia proper, probably be able to hit St. Petersburg and other cities. And that's not sitting well with Putin at all. Additionally, Putin just won his election some days ago, if you want to call it an election over there, you know, but he just won it. So basically, he's got himself secured for another, I think, 6 years or something. And now he could be gearing up. Additionally, he got rid of Shogu, which is sort of like his Minister of Defense. They were friends for a long time. They probably still are. And he fired him and basically removed him from office. He probably either has a desk job or he's going to retire with a big pension, or maybe he's got a desk job and they're going to wait for it to cool off and then he'll retire, something like that. He's not putting him in jail or killing him or anything like that. Okay, so Putin just got reelected, changed his Minister of Defense. Now this, after he goes and visits China. Okay. If you don't take this seriously, you're not understanding it. Okay? He's doing it in 2 places at the same time, around Norway over there and off the coast of California. A ship going off the coast of America, a warship, is not a rare occurrence. It's not common for Russia to do it, but it's not that it never happens. But conducting missile tests, that is unprecedented. I don't ever remember anything like that happening. This seems worse than the Bay of Pigs. This is serious. In addition, at the same time, Belarus is a Russian satellite, near Ukraine, Poland. And they're preparing to receive train loads, not train car loads, whole trains, coming from Russia full of military weapons and ammunition and supplies and military personnel. It's thought that if Putin was going to tangle with NATO, one of his primary targets would be Poland. Poland has been building up its military defenses for some time, months now, preparing for this. Anti-tank equipment, these things of metal stands and trenches and different things to stop tanks. And Poland is where they bring the weapons for Ukraine. They don't fly them into Ukraine because they don't want to look like they're putting their military in Ukraine. They don't want to get attacked by Russian rockets and missiles, so they go to Poland. And then Poland, which has a border with Ukraine, transports these weapons in via ground. It could be a train, trucks, whatever. They don't use tunnels. They're not as clever as Hamas, okay? So if Putin can stop the flow of weapons from Poland, he has a much stronger chance of knocking out Ukraine because they're not going to easily be able to replenish unless they use another country. Now, Belarus got a border with Ukraine and I believe Poland. And Belarus is blindly on the side of Putin. The Belarusian president is just committed to follow Putin wherever Putin may go. And that's the kind of loyalty that Putin demands and respects. He doesn't take the position of, oh, you gotta follow me, you idiot. No. You gotta follow me to be in my network. And if you do, I respect you and I'll, pull through on all the promises I give you. And Putin tries hard, unlike America, to not turn his back on their allies. Putin also has troops in this little tiny country in that area called Kaliningrad. So Putin's in reasonably good shape to start a war over there. And what's NATO going to do, we don't know. We don't know. Now, there's so-called an axis, I don't know, we'll call them evil, but both sides are evil. An axis of evil that's against America. At the top tier is China and Russia. They've been busted up by sanctions, pushed around by America. If they don't stop America, the sanctions and the other stuff that's happening is going to destroy them. The next tier underneath them is North Korea and Iran. Both of them have a lot of weapons, a lot of military personnel, and awful economies. The next tier under that are like much less significant players like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim-backed terrorists in Iraq and Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, things like that, okay? Those are disposable, throwaway assets, pawns in the game of war. They don't care about them. Yemen would be another one. The idea is to protect and preserve Russia and China because they have tremendous, what's called post-war capabilities. Russia has natural gas and oil and manufactures things, not just weapons, they manufacture lots of stuff. China manufactures lots of stuff, doesn't have energy, but has cheap manufacturing of all sorts of things. So they're the ones to protect. Iran manufactures nothing. What are they? Did you ever buy an Iranian TV or wristwatch or car? All they do is make war stuff, and they don't make advanced war equipment like China and Russia do. So they're kind of just a throwaway asset, but they do have a lot of natural gas and oil, and that's a concern they like. North Korea basically has no exportable products, and they're just there to do war, and they make military equipment and stuff like that. All right? So, Jeremiah 50 verse 24 says God put America in a snare, which he did. And you don't know you're in a snare until you try to get out. Then you realize you can't get out. Since October 7th, Biden released approximately 5 or 6 billion or $7 billion of sanction money to Iran. Yes, he did. So that's a bad thing, giving them all the sanction money. Now, Biden is protecting Hamas. This new portable pier in Gaza, the floating pier, is not there to deliver humanitarian aid, food, water, medical, fuel to Gaza. It serves no purpose to do that. They do fine with the trucks. There's so much food in Gaza now, they don't know what to do with it. They're selling the humanitarian aid in the open markets dirt cheap. They're swimming in food, and Biden keeps screaming they need more every day. I put videos up on my Telegram channel of all the food in the markets and the outdoor markets. It's a joke. So what happens to the food? It comes in on truck, and then they distribute it on truck throughout Gaza. Hamas attacks the trucks and confiscates the food for themselves. Some of it they keep, and some of it they sell. The people don't get it. The food doesn't wind up in their bellies. Okay? So the problem is with the trucks. The Gazan citizens, not a must, hijack the trucks. They jump on it, they rip the food off. Why? Well, they could use it and they could sell it and trade it. Hamas shoots at them and shoots them when they do this. So there's a definite problem with the trucks distributing the food throughout Gaza. The pier is in the south of Gaza, and the food must be distributed up to the center and the north by truck. It's not hard to understand. So the food comes in on a ship. The pier looks like it might even be 200 yards out in the water, something like that. It's probably not water deep enough for a large ship. Could be, maybe. Maybe it's 300 or 250 yards in the water. I don't know. Maybe they could get a ship out there. I have no idea. We'll find out soon enough. If they can't, they'll dock a mile or two out, and they'll offload the smaller boats that will drive up to the pier and offload and then go back. If they can tie a big boat up to the pier, or 2 or 3 at a time, they will. And I think most of these boats are going to need 25, 30 feet of depth of the water at least, especially when they're fully loaded. Maybe more when they're fully loaded, I don't know. So you offload the food and the medical and the water and the fuel and whatever from containers on the boat to the pier, and then cranes would pick the container up and put them on trucks who would distribute them to Gaza. So the boat is a solution to it's not a solution to the problem, I should say. The trucks, okay. It might be a solution to moving more food in down there, which they don't need, but it's not going to help with the. This is not going to do the job. So why did they build the pier? To build the pier to put troops in Gaza. Because America and the other countries will say Gaza is its own place. 143 countries in the UN just voted for Palestine, which includes Gaza, to be recognized by the UN. But it needs Security Council appeal, and it doesn't look like that approval, and it doesn't look like they'll ever get that. So America already said they're going to put 1,000 soldiers in on the pier to protect the ships, the soldiers, the pier, the food that's on the pier, and all of this. And then England said they'll send ships. And of late, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, Egypt, and I imagine they probably got more, are saying they will raise an occupying army force to go into Gaza and enforce the ceasefire. Well, what ceasefire? Nobody said they agree to a ceasefire. So you're going to enforce a non-existent ceasefire. In other words, they intend to impose a ceasefire on Israel using military force. Now, Netanyahu is very shady. October 7th, 3 active criminal cases in the courts in Israel for corruption. People don't know why he's dragging the wars out. Lots of opposition to Netanyahu. Why? Netanyahu's behavior is not reasonably explained. It's too weird. He never said boo about this pier. Did he ever stipulate the right to search these containers coming in? What if Turkey sends a container and inside the containers are missiles and rockets? Or what if Iran does it? Or somebody else? What does Israel do? The standard American routine, just suck it up, buttercup. They don't care what happens to Israel. As evidenced by their actions, not their words. Their words are, oh, we love Israel. Their actions are, drop dead Israel. What if Russia wants to come in and help in Gaza? I haven't heard anything to that effect. I doubt it. But I haven't heard Iran say they want to come in. Hamas is going to attack the pier. They already did in the early stages, and they'll probably attack the soldiers. Because they don't want them there. Because they'll enforce a ceasefire. They'll make sure the humanitarian aid goes to the civilians. So when they start attacking, the soldiers and the pier, America, the UK will say, oh, we just got to bring more soldiers in. So they'll go from 1,000 to 3,000 to 5,000. They'll bring in Patriot missile systems. They'll bring in Apache helicopters to follow the trucks and protect them. Or they'll just leave. This pier is to put foreign troops in Gaza directly without Israel's permission. Israel can't say anything because they'll say it's Gaza. We recognize Gaza, not your territory. You gave it back, remember. So you see, this is Netanyahu didn't protest it, so I imagine he worked it out with Biden. America is doing all it can night and day to protect Hamas, so they can stay in Gaza, run Gaza, and keep killing the Jews in Israel. He sucked us into these wars, promising us stuff to get us in basically a 5-front war. Lebanon, Gaza, we get missiles periodically from Syria, from Iraq, from Yemen, and the 6th front is the West Bank with the terrorists, and that's almost not a front, but it is and it isn't. And then he withdraws his support. So we got the whole Arab world, including Iran, wanting to slit our throats. And this poor excuse for a human being, Biden, goes and says, oh, we're not sending you your bombs. Well, what are these bombs that he withheld? 1,700 2,000-pound bombs that are bunker busters that we would use to destroy the tunnels in the Rafah area of Gaza. Plus 1,800 500-pound bombs, which are more or less conventional. The House of Representatives passed a bill to freeze the budgets of the Department of Defense, Department of State, and Jake Sullivan's Security Department until the weapons go to Israel. It passed overwhelmingly in the House, and now it goes to the Senate. I doubt it will pass in the Senate, but it might. And then Biden says he'll veto it. So Biden's intent on leaving the borders open in America, and he's intent on seeing Israel lose to Hamas. And he is protecting Hamas as much as Iran. Have you ever heard of you reap what you shall sow? Well, Biden's now reaping what he sowed. Now, I don't know what China's going to do. See, in my opinion, China is likely not ever going to attack Taiwan. Okay? And Russia may very likely not attack NATO, or maybe very limited, like Poland or something. Because they don't want to get themselves bogged down in the Pacific region and in Europe. They want America bogged down in the Pacific and Europe, not them. And they get America's military assets spread out all over the world, and they want to have them fighting in different fronts. The Houthis, the American and the Brits basically gave up bombing them. I told you guys before it started they would get nowhere with the bombing, and they didn't. They don't even bother anymore. An American warship got hit, I think, 3 or 4 days ago. There might have been another one last night, I'm not sure. And there was, a few days ago, a hit on a merchant marine vessel. They didn't just shoot at it, they got a hit. And the Houthis are saying they're 600,000 strong, and they have every intention of marching over here to Israel and helping Gaza. Will they? I don't know. So Biden and Netanyahu worked together. They got us into this mess with October 7th, and then Israel got mad and went to war, and then Biden leads us on and then drops the ball, leaving us there to suffer from our enemies. It's one thing if Israel called him up on the phone and said, hey, can you give us some bombs? He said no. That's one thing. But leading them on and then pulling the rug out from under them, that's setting a trap or a snare for Israel. So that's why the Lord has Biden in a snare, because he's reaping what he sows. This thing with Russia is a sign of what's to come. Jeremiah 50:51, and more explicitly, if you want to understand this from the viewpoint of Biden and his government, read Isaiah 47, how all these bad things happen to them and they don't know what's going on. So is this the real thing with Russia? It could be, but I don't think so. Where's China in all this? See, the sleeper agents are being activated in America. They're getting the campuses and protests and stuff like that. Not the mainstream, of which there's millions of, the ones that are military-age males. The ones that are working the campus things, they're specially trained to, cause revolution and civil unrest and stuff like that. The regular line soldiers don't know how to do that. They know how to shoot and work weapons and tactics and stuff like that. So they have not yet been deployed. So I don't think there's going to be an invasion until they get deployed previous. And they will hit the military bases. And that's what I see. How much time? Not much. Russia may keep the ships there for a while. Get America used to it. Then put more on the East Coast. Get America used to it. Like Taiwan. China got them used to waking up in the morning. Chinese aircraft are flying around in their restricted airspace. And they're surrounded by 4, 5, 6 warships. Wear them down. They've been doing that for months and months in Taiwan. So if they really were going to attack Taiwan, why wouldn't they? If North Korea, a Chinese ally, was going to attack South Korea, why didn't he do it already? Why is he hemming and hawing? What are you waiting for? You see what I'm saying? I don't think they're really going to attack South Korea and Taiwan. Why? They'll just use their resources to get America, and then after they get rid of America, they could go back and pick off Taiwan and Japan and South Korea easily. The same with Russia and NATO, but he has to make it look like it's real, so America deploys their assets to Europe and deploys their assets to the Pacific, leaving the homeland poorly defended. And then come the sleeper agents to cause more and more disruptions inside America, and then attack the military bases, and then the big forces will come and invade America. It's prophesied, Jeremiah 50:51, Isaiah 47. So we need to be looking for what does China do, what does North Korea do, what does Iran do, what's going on with these other players. And then we start getting a better picture of what's really going on. Putin also came out with a comment that he's going to start using nukes. Well, I wouldn't put much energy into that at all. I don't think. I wouldn't pay attention to that. I wouldn't, I don't think, it's not worth. Okay. Let me look at the chat and see if I got any questions or need to do anything here. This is mostly a current events discourse today. Uh, no, I'm okay. All right. So we got God is getting ready to give it back to Biden. And it's also a warning to Biden and America to stop it, but I don't think they're stopping it. Protests are getting worse and worse and worse. And that's not going to be what the sleeper agents are for. That's the warm up. What the sleeper agents are for are the military bases, I believe, or getting the people in the cities, and says they'll loot and plunder and pillage. So they're going to take a spoil. So they're probably going to come with ships and haul off all kinds of wealth and riches from America. They may take food, I think they will. Hit the museums, they'll hit the banks and crack open the safe deposit boxes. Why? They're not going to want the cash. The cash is worthless. America's money will be like toilet paper, literally. So they'll go in for the jewelry. And that's a pretty common thing to happen, you know. They'll get into the vault boxes of 98% of the banks extremely quickly with a small explosive, and you know, the boxes they'll use crowbars and drills, and it's easy to get in. They're not worried about any police coming or any alarms. And they'll go to the people's houses and loot those, you know, must be 100 cities in America that are wealthy. I understand now Beverly Hills is basically shut down. The stores are basically closed. And the people who are afraid to go out, you know, the normal scenario for the Beverly Hills people is they, you know, they have a collection of satanic, you know, multimillionaires there. And they have a lot of charity events. They like to keep themselves looking clean on the outside of the cup. And they go to these charity events and they have them in museums and special places and mansions, and they wear millions of dollars worth of jewelry and expensive clothing, and they show their vanity off to each other and compliment each other. And they have, you know, music and food, and they think it's really cool. And they're afraid to go now because they're afraid they'll have their stuff robbed, so they don't wear it. And they don't want to go out without a bodyguard. In Beverly Hills. Now, Beverly Hills is not a big area. I think they have a total of about 67 pups. And that means there's very few on shift at any one time. You know, maybe 12, because you got time off, vacation, weekends, sick. And that's not a lot. And probably 3 are in the station or 4. I mean, they don't have a lot of personnel. They have the reputation in the past of being a good police department. I think they deteriorated their standards because they started hiring not for ability, but hiring for religion, race, sex, stuff like that. And they got themselves, I think, relatively ineffective. The way they would normally respond in Beverly Hills to like a cry for, oh, there's a kidnapping, there's a robbery, a carjacking. If someone would phone it in while it was in progress, they would put it onto the motorcycle cops. So they would usually have perhaps 2 motorcycle cops running around Beverly Hills, paying for the motorcycles with stupid traffic tickets, and they would roll on such calls, and they could get there very fast because they don't have to pay attention to traffic. They could go on sidewalks, they could go in between the cars or whatever and get there. Now, they're just one guy on a motorcycle with a pistol. So he can't do that much, but he's still dangerous. And he can get on the horn and, you know, go to the dispatcher and explain the situation, and they could deploy more units, and they also have mutual defense treaties with the neighboring community, and they may be able to pull 3 or 4 units from next door. And secure the situation, but it's rough. I saw a video a long time ago, this is probably a year ago. There was a guy selling very fine jewels and artwork, and he was in Beverly Hills had a big display window in the street, and he had some kind of very secure glass. So you couldn't just wrap your jacket up and punch the window and grab, a $500,000 necklace, So a gang of these thugs came over there with hammers, small sledgehammers, and they stood there and they just kept smashing the window until it broke. And there was a crew of them. There was about 4, and they went and they cleaned all his windows out. They got about $6 million retail. The insurance company on $6 million probably paid 1.5, maybe maximum $2 million, because the markup is so high on this junk. The insurance companies know it. So they got away with it. I don't think they were ever caught. And there was broad daylight. People were walking by, and they just did it. They ran around the corner, got in a car. They probably drove, 2-3 blocks, jumped out, got in a different car. And when they park the first car, they get out very cool, calm, and collected, and just go into the second car, and nobody really pays much attention to them. And then they drove away, and they may have changed cars a third time. I don't know. That's a common tactic when I was in Florida years ago. That's how they would rob a bank. They'd get a stolen car, and they would go rob a bank or a supermarket, a crew, stick-up crew. They would jump in the car, and everybody from the bank, and they'd see the license plate on the car with the cameras and everything else, right? And these banks were right by the interstate entrance. So they would go a few blocks away into a large parking lot by stores, pull the car up, calmly walk out of the car, shut the doors, get in the other car, and drive away. And, they had to be mindful the cameras could pick up the other car. So they would usually just change it once, get on the freeway, and they're on the freeway going 70 miles, 75 miles an hour. By the time the cops get around to getting reports and finding the drop location where they dropped the first car off by checking cameras and the people, and then trying to get a plate number and description on the second car, these guys are 40, 50 miles or more away. They could be 75 miles away. In what direction, they don't know. So they send it out to other law enforcement agencies, and it's not their community, so it's old, and they might have just dumped the car, they could have gone 25, 30 miles, um, and then dumped the car for another car, you know. So that's how they get away. Um, you're not going to get it, you know, it's just, it takes too much time. All they got to do, an armed robbery crew is, I used to work on law enforcement when I was younger, all they got to really do is, if they could get away for even 15 minutes or 10 minutes, the chances of getting them is pretty slim unless you live in a massive city, like if you're in the largest city and area of the United States, which is Jacksonville, the consolidated city and county of Jacksonville. Well, it could take you 45 minutes to drive through the whole place. Well, then the whole local police keeps looking for you. But in normal situations, you're after 15 minutes or something. Los Angeles is another one, New York's another one, but most of the other cities, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You're in another city, and the cops in the other city aren't on the radio network, so they got to wait for the bulletin to come in, then it's got to get put out. And by the time that happens, you know, it's a half hour or so, and they know you're not going to get anywhere with it. They don't pay a lot of attention. And, you know, in big cities, they could use a getaway car, and then they could use a cab or public transportation. You know, there's a lot of things that can be done. So you got to get them right away, or you're not going to get them. Now, they might turn up days or weeks later for some other reason, but you're not going to, you know, a lot of these morons, you know, if you rob a bank, you're not getting a lot of money. They're going to get out of it with $6,000, $7,000, $10,000. They're not going to get a lot of money. But there are places they could rob, like a supermarket, where they could get out with 40, 50,000 if they timed it right, you know. A big supermarket with 8 or 10 registers, and they hit the timing right, and on the right day, at the right time of day, they might get 40, 50,000 bucks in cash, in small bills, basically. And then they start, you know, partying down. They start buying large quantities of coke and heroin, you know, prostitutes and whatever. And the word gets out on the street that they were the crew that hit the supermarket, you know. Now, if they went 100 miles from where they live and hit the supermarket, it's not going to work against them, you know. But so anyway, we now believe that Hezbollah in Lebanon has a drone that itself is a suicide drone, and it fires 2 small missiles. And it comes from Russia. Now, is there a chance Russia gave them the technology to make their own? I don't think they could make a drone that fires missiles. No, they're getting it from Russia. They used it against some sort of a spy blimp that Israel has. And they wounded the spy blimp, let's say. They didn't bring it down, but they wounded it. And then when the drone fires its missiles, it becomes a suicide drone with its own explosive and just crashes into something. I think they got it into a military base. I don't think they were very successful. They did injure or damage the blimp, but that was about it. But Russia's giving them this weaponology, this weapons. So what's up with that? So we're still in Rafah. We expanded the war in Rafah. We're bringing more soldiers in, more tanks. And we're continuing to prosecute the war and keep pushing more and more into Rafah. We last 2 days we're taking pretty good casualties, but Israel is rather good to great at learning from these mistakes on the fly and correcting for them. So the casualty taking in Rafah, I think, if it's not over by today, it'll be over by tomorrow. they'll have it resolved. Whatever the vulnerability is, it was probably booby traps and things like that. Whatever it is, I'm glad the coffee cup was empty and it's made out of aluminum. Whatever the mistake was that was allowing them to cause so much casualties. You know, it was like 4 a day. They weren't necessarily dead either, you know, but that's a lot for Israel. So they're going to have all of that corrected, I would say, probably by today. They just love these people. They see Israel, they see Bible, and they just come in here and insult you. You know, it's just how they are. You know, they're full of hate, and they got hate for God. They got hate for people. They got hate for everybody. They hate each other too. You know. So I'm going to take a quick break for a minute, and then we'll discuss what's gonna happen next, what we could look for, and what to expect. The idea that China and Russia have is to get America scared and get America to deploy massive amounts of American military assets of all sorts, soldiers, planes, boats, everything, away from America without actually having a fight with America. If Russia has a fight with America and NATO, they're going to get weakened. If China and North Korea, well, North Korea attacks South Korea, China attacks Taiwan, Japan attacks Taiwan, then there's trouble from the Philippines and from Guam and all that, then China's going to get weakened. Why? It makes no sense. Just play with this idiot Biden who's having his strings pulled by Obama because I think maybe, because 75% of Biden's staff worked for Obama in the presidency. So what do you think? I can't prove it, but it looks like it could be. Or it could be just a continuation of Obama's policies, but I don't think so. So anyway, why what happens to China if they get Taiwan and they lose, 200 aircraft, 45 warships, 160,000 soldiers? They start taking destruction on the homeland. What do they need that for? Scare America. North Korea scares America. China scares America with the Philippines, with Taiwan, with Japan. Get America to send more assets to the Pacific. Russia scares America and NATO. Get America to put more assets into Europe. Iran scares America with the Middle East. Get America to put more assets in the Middle East. Better yet, get America to have a protracted fight in the Middle East and put a lot of assets here. That's what I think they're trying to do in Yemen. It's not working. Biden's just too gun shy. Doing a big attack on Israel isn't going to get America to put a lot of assets over here. He won't do it. That's what they're trying to do. And then when America's assets are sufficiently deployed abroad and the sleeper agents go to work, because then their odds of victory are greater with fewer losses, and they start hitting military bases and cities. There could be as many as 7 or 8 million of these military age sleeper agents. There's at least 2 million. That's enough for a massive army. They could hit the bases. American military bases in America are poorly defended. A bunch of military police and Department of Defense police running around with pistols and patrol cars, and the soldiers are, for the most part, massively not armed, unless they're actually at the range training. They can't keep personal weapons on the base, so all the weapons are locked up. They could overrun a base with 1,000 people, or maybe less even, or 2, 3, 4,000, whatever they need. And then they'll kill the soldiers and they'll upgrade their weapons. Then they'll start hitting the cities. When they're finished with America, they could go back and clean house on Taiwan, but Taiwan would probably just surrender. Japan, no, they got too much pride. They just get taken out. South Korea probably just get taken out. NATO will fight back. They don't plan on losing a lot of military assets when they hit America because of the sleeper agents taking out the military. American military that's offshore when America gets hit is going to stop receiving orders, and they're not going to know what to do, and they're not going to do anything. A lot of American military boats are nuclear powered, so they go a good 20 years without needing gas, but they need food. So maybe the guys could stay on the boat a few months. How are they going to go if they got a crew of 250 on a destroyer? Where are they going to get, 75 or 200,000 to buy a whole load of food to feed the crew for weeks? They don't have that kind of cash. They might have some cash for emergencies or something, but maybe they got it at one time. Who knows? Who's going to take American money after this attack? When they do this attack, every single stock on all the stock exchanges in America, all the bonds, all the commodities, all the futures, all the options, it's all going to become value zero. Zero. They'll suspend trading and it'll never come back. It'll be a complete wipeout. The paper currency, zero value. Zero. Okay? Nobody's going to want it. The Bitcoin stuff, that'll be zero too. The internet will be gone. So let's talk about darkness, Carrington effect, solar flares. In 1860, they had a big solar flare that hit America, and they tell you that it burned out all the telegraph lines. I heard Glenn Beck say that. That's not exactly what happened. What happened is they had telegraph lines, you had a key where you did Morse, well, not Morse code, you did, I forgot what they call it, dot and dash. They would remember how many dots and dashes made up each letter, and that's how they would spell the words out. It was rather tedious. And the key operator made a decent living. The keys were up and down, vertical, well, they were horizontal sometimes. And they had telegraph cable wires that were on poles, like telephone poles, similar. And the wires went across America, and they ran wires from the poles to the telegraph office, which was Western Union sometimes. And they took the coating on the wire and they stripped it, and they took the copper wire and they wrapped it around some screws on the telegraph key, and they would tighten them down. And this would enable them to hear messages, because I believe it was the key or maybe another device would give them the dots and the dashes. And they'd sit there with a piece of paper and write it out, and they would get the message. So there was this wire wrapped around the key that they used to do the dots and dashes. And the Carrington effect, the solar flares, was so strong that it was frying the transformers and electrical equipment in many of these telegraph stations, not every one, but many of them. So what they did is they shut their power off. And that didn't even help, because the electricity or static electricity would be, or whatever it was, I don't know, some kind of electricity, was going through the wires. And they usually had a pad of paper right next to the telegraph key so they could write the message down. And the sparks were hitting the telegraph key, even though it was powered down, and causing flames to jump out. The only way they got it to stop with the flames was, even though the telegraph lines were turned off, there was no current in them, they took the wires that they wrapped around the screws on the telegraph key, they had to disconnect them from the telegraph key, and that pretty much stopped it. They just let them hang, and maybe they got sparks or something, that was it. And that was, I think, the worst solar flare that ever hit America. Now, today, if you had something that big, it could fry electronics, but I don't know how big it would have to be. It's not tested. So we don't know. Do I think it's got potential to wreck the whole country and create darkness? Arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Darkness shall cover the whole earth, gross darkness. The word for the darkness is kosek, which means very thick, deep darkness. Now, if you knock out the electricity in America, or Russia, or England, or Germany, or the Philippines, or China, whatever, I don't care where, if you knock out the electricity, are they going to have darkness? Sure, but when? Nighttime. Are they going to have darkness during the day? No, the sun comes out. And at night, the moon and the stars. So when they had the darkness in Egypt, the Jews lived in a place in Egypt called Goshen. And God arranged it that there was darkness in Egypt, in Goshen too. But in the houses that the Israelites lived in Goshen, they were able to have light. They could light a lamp, a wick, or a torch, whatever. With the Egyptians, which means every place other than Goshen, because they wouldn't live in Goshen because that was the slave community, the Jewish slaves. So they were unable to see outside because you couldn't see your hand in front of your face probably, or maybe you could see 6 inches or something. It was really dark. You probably couldn't see anything. So they didn't want to go out of their house because you could bang into things, fall down, get hurt, you know. So they stayed in their house, and they couldn't have a fire in their house. They couldn't have a light in their house. God arranged it that the Israelites had light in their house, and yet they could not at the same time. And this darkness went on for 3 days. So do I think that the darkness covering the earth is going to be a result of a Carrington effect type thing? I don't see how you got a word fit here. Because if you're getting the sun, especially this time of year, you got like, what, 12, 14 hours of daylight or something like that, right? How is that the darkness? I don't get it. See my point? And then you got, let's say you got a full moon. See, or a half moon even gives you plenty of light. So I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to be what it's talking about. So we saw a lot of big solar flares the other days. And we're seeing northern lights in places they normally aren't. And we might see more of that, but we haven't seen any of this destruction. Now, they're saying that these future coming solar flares are going to be of a higher power than what we even saw. I don't, you know, now you get into what they call a priori, before experience, you know. For instance, you know, what does a 9.4 earthquake look like? We don't know. We never went through one. Historically, I think they might have had some like that. But we don't know what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it sounds like, what it's like. We don't know. We never went through anything like that. So this is basically how I'm looking at this. So I don't think the solar flares is, maybe it's, you know, signs in the sky, you know, with us seeing the northern lights and stuff, and that might get even more pronounced, and people more south from the north may see this. But I just don't see it causing the darkness. It doesn't lend itself to the scriptures. Yeah, it's going to cause darkness if it fries the electricity, but that's going to be darkness at night. And when the Carrington effect happened, it just hit America. It didn't hit the rest of the world. So the whole world didn't go out. So I don't think it's going to be a Carrington effect kind of thing, solar flares and that, like that. So far, a lot of nothing has happened from the solar flares except a lot of fear. People saying they're going to affect an EMP, they're going to do this, they're going to blow your cars out, your electronics, this and that. I imagine if you had one very strong, maybe a lot stronger than the Carrington effect one in 1860, you might get somewhere with that. I don't know. You got me on that one, I just don't know. So we watch China for what she's doing, troop movements, aircraft movement. We watch Iran. We watch Russia very closely. And keep your eyes on Israel, which is the prophetic timepiece. And we'll see what Biden does. I don't think he's ever given Israel these bombs. And keep praying for Israel. They've got to stop relying on their armies and their military and their governments and the American military and government and all this other stuff. And they got to start turning to God. And that's when the deliverance will happen. And you read it in Zechariah 12. They go into mourning. And that's what happens. And you're not going to... They've not gotten any of their land back with their military. They're still fighting in Gaza, So it's not going to come through the military. There's not going to be any deliverance or anything like that happening with them with the military. It's just not going to happen. If anybody's got questions, you can put them up in the chat. If anybody has any prayer requests, you can put them up. Now, you got to understand that this stuff is serious. Russia getting the guts to go off the coast of Oakland, California and start launching missiles and rockets as tests, and do the same thing up in Scandinavia and there, Norway and one of the other countries at about the same time is a little crazy. And then moving all kinds of troops and supplies into Belarus at the same time. See, this gets America scared. And when America gets scared, then they start moving assets around. So these are the days we watch. We're coming to the wire, the timing. And we're going to see what Biden does and doesn't do. Right now, he's trying to avoid everything. They might decide to attack America. Maybe they'll attack some American warships coming out to watch them or something. I don't know. But Biden's position is to do nothing or next to nothing, no matter what you do to him. Look at the Houthis hitting his ships. He doesn't do anything. So Russia may take a poke at him. Don't know. I think this run is a training mission for Russia. Get the Navy familiar with the Pacific, get the Navy familiar with Americans' defense mechanisms, and their ships will come out to stay near them, and all of this. So when it comes to do it for real, they'll know what to do. The best for China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and so forth is to have the sleeper agents, which are already in place, destroy America. Now, the siege is in place in Israel, and the sleeper agents are in place in America. A lot of parallelism here. China is a very conservative, playing his hand close to the chest, holding his cards close, and they want to make real sure that America is going to be busted up really badly before they send troops here. So that's basically what I got. So these are the times we watch. This is serious. I don't think this is it, but it looks serious. I think when China makes a move, that'll be it. Because China is very careful. Russia's sort of headstrong. China's not. China thinks things through and wants to be very, very careful. When they start making moves, then it's on. It's on. Okay. So please pray for me, Moshe, and my wife. Pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our healing. Pray for our finances, and pray for our offerings to go up. Pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem and better videos. And that's what I was led to do today. And I know you guys, get a little worn out hearing all this stuff, but this is happening right off the shore of California. So when we start seeing it get this close, we got to really start talking about it. We can't just go and do Bible studies and not deal with this. We got to deal with this. Okay? And it's going on in Europe too, with Russia. So it needs to be dealt with, and we dealt with it. So I'll keep you updated, and please hit the like button. It takes you 2 seconds. And if you want to get the updates when the eggs start hitting the fan, subscribe, because when stuff starts happening and it gets wild, I'll go on and do 4 or 5 live streams a day, and you'll get notices on at least some of them. And you won't miss out. The news we get here regarding the Middle East is usually 8 to 12 hours before the mainstream media talks about it. Okay. I did see the NOTAMs. I put this stuff up on my Telegram. It's real about Russia. It's not make-believe. Okay, so I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.